Hi, I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. My channel is dedicated to helping victims of narcissistic abuse get free and stay free. Now, this is part 3 of the video series, and in this episode, I'd like to show you the event, how we were impacted, and how we became part of the smear campaign and part of the evil agenda, and were very, very easily, through fear, manipulation, and mind control, became flying monkeys against our fellow man.
On the morning of September 11, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters, directed by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world, using a satellite phone and a laptop, directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers and the military combat-trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York. While in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the Budget Analyst Office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th. And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
Now, I think it's safe to say that the entire world knows that 9/11 was an inside job. There were no Muslim extremists, though the elites plan to divide mankind and to turn us all into smear campaigning flying monkeys of absolute hatred towards our fellow man was extremely effective.
Al-Qaeda terrorist, September the 11th.
Al-Qaeda, 9/11 hijackers,
jihadist, terrorist organizations.
Terror attack.
Bin Laden.
September 11th.
Terrorist. The self-confessed mastermind.
Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
Al-Qaeda. Terrible new terrorist organization.
September 11th.
Our enemy is a radical network of terrorists and every government that supports them.
Forget for one moment everything you've been told about September 11th, 2001. Instead, let's ask ourselves one question. What was 9/11? A terrorist atrocity? An attack on America? The first salvo in a new war? A day that changed everything? The question may seem simple, but how we answer it is of vital importance. It determines how we proceed with our investigation of that day. And once you strip away the emotional rhetoric and the fear-inducing imagery, we're left with the simple truth. 9/11 was a crime. And as with any crime, there is one overriding imperative that detectives must follow to identify the perpetrators. Follow the money.
Unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747, or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think.
But wait a minute, you say, what about all the beheadings?
Cyber Burkut released the video, and it's just exactly what we thought: a cheap production of bad actors, poor quality of everything, and it's just them goofing around. And it's in front of a green screen. It looks like Jihadi John, and it shows how these guys, they weren't sweating, crying in the desert. When they go to cut their head, you don't see blood squirming all over the place. You don't even see the guy resisting. I mean, just even a basic human reaction to a knife being held to your throat, these guys would have done more than that. So you watch the video. I don't know.
Now you might say, okay, 9/11 clearly was an inside job. I don't think there's a thinking person on the planet that believes otherwise. But it very effectively turned us against Muslims to the point that we were all waving our flags as the NATO troops went on to destroy these people, to absolutely destroy their homelands and murder many of them, not to mention the countless, a million NATO troops dead, young men and women who believed they were defending their country. Now that whole red alert, the Muslims are coming, the evil Muslims are coming, has been inflicted on the people of France. They've been under martial law a bloody year now with the exact same hate propaganda driving a wedge between humanity.
Well, let's now talk to political journalist and author Gerard O'Coleman, who joins us from Paris this evening. Thanks very much for joining us again on RT International. You're in the French capital. What's the mood and atmosphere in the city right now?
We're being told that there's a state of war and a state of emergency. We've had this before. We had this in January, and for several weeks we had non-stop sirens and non-stop chatter on the radio about the threat from radical Islam and terrorist groups and so on. And so we're having a kind of a replay of that, but it has been, I think, accentuated, and we're going to have an intensification of the media campaign, which is essentially a propaganda campaign to make people in France fear Muslims. We need to be clear about the origin of the war on terror. The war on terror is, I quote, orchestrated from abroad. These are the words François Hollande used to describe this terrorist attack. Well, the attacks that have been continuing to destroy Syria, to massacre its population, have also been orchestrated from abroad. They were orchestrated by NATO, and they've been carrying these attacks out against the civilian population of Syria for 4 years now. And this is a terrorist campaign that is also orchestrated from abroad. And people in Europe need to understand that there is a war that is becoming global, that is being waged against civilian populations in particular. It is a form of neo-imperialism and neo-colonialism which aims to divide and conquer European and Middle Eastern and African and the world's population, for that matter, and to make them submit to a global order that does not serve the interests of most of the people on this planet, but that does serve the interests of a very few ruling elite, a very small, tiny, and particularly tyrannical ruling elite.
Now, what about the ISIS bride recruitment program, where we are supposed to believe that 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds are boarding international flights, maybe having to change planes 4 times. No parents there, no nothing. Now, I've flown with my kids, and I'm here to tell you that from Canada to Disneyland, I have to, because my husband's dad, I have to show up 4 hours early. I have to meet with a notary public there at the airport. They take my kids away and interview them separately. I have to present my death certificate for my husband. I have to have had that notarized. I got to pay $400, and I am absolutely scrutinized flying alone with my kids. So are you trying to tell me that 14-year-old girls are just boarding flights for Syria? What the fuck? Now, I, for one, as a member of the human race, absolutely refuse to be brainwashed and manipulated and deceived into hating my fellow man. I mean, which Muslim am I supposed to hate? Like, I don't know if any of you have Muslim friends, but I'm here to tell you I don't have a lot of Muslim friends. I do have 3 Muslim friends that I've known for quite a long time, and to be honest, in all my experience with them, they're just hardworking, decent human beings who want to be able to worship their God in peace. They don't want to hurt anybody. They don't want to behead anybody. They're not looking for 12-year-old ISIS brides. I mean, they're absolutely as horrified as we all should be. I refuse to let narcissists run my life. I refuse to let narcissists control my mind. I refuse to let my children's minds be controlled by a narcissistic agenda of evil. The Muslims are not responsible for 9/11. I'm sorry, but yet I'm supposed to hate a Muslim. Which one? How about this little guy? Why would I hate those little children? I have 5 sons. My God, it is not our job to hate each other. We are our brother's keeper. When we let the evil that rules this planet divide us, oh my God, oh, people, please. Did the Muslims hate us before we leveled their countries and murdered their children and wives and elderly? No. No, they probably didn't hate us. Do they hate us now? Oh, yeah, I bet they hate us hard. I'll bet they really hate us. So guess what? The psychopaths and narcissists, the evil ruling monsters that govern this planet, their evil agenda works. So guess what? We do all hate each other now. Now we have something to fear when we absolutely didn't before. Now that the world's governing narcissists and psychopathic fiends and maniacs have created this absolute catastrophe, there are millions and millions of Muslims wandering Europe. All hell is breaking loose in almost every country. Why? Because their homes were leveled for a crime they didn't commit. So now, as caring human beings, as enlightened people, how do we turn this around? This has been an absolute epic win for the psychopaths and narcissists that govern this once fabulous planet. Now, I'm Kim. You're watching Kim Wilson TV. I love you guys lots, and I hope you do a little bit of research and really figure out who the enemy is before you start hating on your fellow man. On to the next part of this series. Peace be with you all.